Okay, guys. Hey, everybody. June the 1st, 2021. And tonight is Travel Talk Tuesday, and we're talking about my Best of the Med tour. And we're going the Best of the Med tour, and my video is still running here. We're talking about my Best of the Med tour beginning in France. So all along the Mediterranean coast of France. So beginning in a medieval town of Carcassonne and going through the area of Provence and ending up in Nice on the Côte d'Azur. So that's what we're doing tonight. But before we ever even look into those destinations, I want to share a little bit about what's on the menu for tonight. So if you guys, Leslie, if you can direct that camera down here. I've been, in the prelude, been kind of cutting up some of the baguette here. So we've got the baguette, not toasted or anything, fresh out of the oven. And then we have two types of French cheese. We have this particular piece of cheese here, which comes from the Pyrenees, which is the mountains between Spain and France. And just above where we're first going to be visiting is Carcassonne. And so let me show you how to do this cheese, because this is a sheep's cheese. And you don't really want to eat the exterior, because this is the rind and this is all mold on any cheese. So what I usually do is I just take it, cut it here, cut it off here. Even with brie, you know, it comes in a little packet. Most people just eat the brie in the packet and everything, but maybe if you just eat the innards, it's great. And so this is the sheep cheese from the Pyrenees Mountains. I just kind of like to cut it in slivers like that. And this is cow's milk cheese, and it's in a round. So I'm just going to kind of cut this off too, the rind off of it. And these are pretty good cheeses. This is actually from just over the border into Switzerland. And so this is a cow's milk cheese. So this will be much more lighter. And this has kind of a nutmeggy creamy taste as well. So so like a camembert, but yet with more body to it. And then after the cheese course, we've got, to go with our bread, we've got some escargot. So I'm gonna pop that in the oven while we're talking here. These are the snails. Believe it or not, these snails are prepared in France, and they're just like grown, like we grow earthworms and mushrooms here and whatnot. So snails are grown. They come by and pick them up off the ground, throw them in a pot of boiling water. The snail itself cooks. They dig it out of the shell, and then they take the shell and put it in more boiling water to purify it. And then they put the snail back in the shell. And then on top of it, all this green stuff is a little bit of parsley and a whole lot of butter, which it really makes it great. So once we get this cooked, I'll show you, because we're going to sop it all up with this bread. And then finally, I've got a couple of good pieces of meat here. And this is some filet. And we're going to have, in France, they call it steak and French fries. So we, in France, they know it as steak frite. And so that's what we're going to have for our main course tonight. So I'm going to try to cook this as we go along, because Charlotte, my wife, has agreed to join me tonight because she's an expert on these destinations. So that's what we're going to deal with, I think, tonight. So you want to come over here?
So, hi, everybody. Y'all get to talk to me tonight.
Let me move this out of the way. Well, Charlotte does a really good job on this tour, and most of the people who travel with her on this tour, a lot of them are ladies, and Charlotte does it well with going to markets and looking at all this kind of stuff, and there's no better place to do this than in the south of France. So let me start with our first destination, which is Carcassonne. Okay. You see, last week we talked about Barcelona. This is on the seaside in Spain. We go across the border. The Pyrenees Mountains are right here. And then we go up to this medieval town of Carcassonne. So we're going to let it run, and Charlotte and I both are going to talk a little bit as we go through this. On this particular tour, we arrive in the late afternoon, 4 o'clock or so, and Carcassonne is a medieval town, and let David tell you a little bit about it.
In southwestern France.
Can you hear that?
The old town, known as the medieval city, is usually filled with bus traffic and a lot of tour groups every day from about 10 to 4 o'clock. But for us, we stay in Carcassonne overnight. So we have the late afternoon, early morning, and all evening to experience the city practically all by ourselves. Just like any medieval castle in Europe, the castle here in Carcassonne has the outer walls, like you see here, and then ramparts that go around to guard, and then inside the walls is a little town, the medieval town, as you see this portion. These are some views from the ramparts, the walkway around the walls of Carcassonne. I think Charlotte took that photo there. Again, some of the ancient medieval stone walls here in Carcassonne.
Everybody can see.
This is myself at the well, along with Laura and Byron, some of our friends from a few years back. Carcassonne is in an area of France that is famous for the white wine, and you saw the picture back there a moment ago that was looking out into the countryside. This is the ramparts up on the wall, around the bottom of the wall of Carcassonne. Actually, that path goes between the outer wall and the inner wall. Some of the grapes growing outside of town. This is a little inner courtyard where there's a lot of outdoor cafes and plenty of fine restaurants as well in Carcassonne and within the walls of Carcassonne. I mentioned earlier we stay here overnight, so we get these beautiful views of the illuminated castle walls, and our hotel is just down the hill from there, maybe a 10-minute walk. Charlotte and her cats. The cathedral inside Carcassonne. Again, Byron, Laura, Charlotte, and me. Golden sunset on the western walls of Carcassonne, and some of the grapevines down the valley.
While the pictures are scrolling, we do stay overnight here, and we eat hopefully inside the walls at some little restaurants. And a lot of the food there is hearty, rich farmers fare, and it comes in a little bowl, and it's served as a cassoulet. So we would know it as a casserole. And it's put in a little white dish and baked in the oven, and it could be sausages. What else, Charlotte, do you get there?
Beans, a lot of beans.
Yeah. Get it mixed with chicken and pork and whatnot, but that's very famous from the region, so that's what you get. And there's the vineyards there are right there below town, and it's famous for their white wine in this region. Carcassonne. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay, Carcassonne. I had some videos from previous years. I said it many different ways, but Carcassonne. Let me say it again. Carcassonne. Is that correct? Carcassonne.
I'm not correcting you, so I think.
So the last time I was there with Charlotte, I think she got up in the morning and went in and took photos all by herself. I've never been inside that cathedral, but she has. And so these are some of the lanes and everything that run in and out of the medieval town. Very quaint, very very, very nice to go into. But just outside is a big city. And then our hotel is just maybe 50 yards down the hill from where we stay. Some of the food, there's some cheese, bread, you got it. An evening night shot in Carcassonne. So that's what we have there. So once we leave like I said, we arrive about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that in Carcassonne. We have it, and on a normal year, there's a lot of day trippers come into Carcassonne, and they come in from maybe 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And then after 4, they all leave. And then, boy, you're not any time of year that we're there. We've got the town pretty much to ourselves and the locals. And a lot of times, like the last time I was there was in October, it began closing down right about dark. The restaurants didn't stay open way too late. But we were walking out of here, and we were the last ones out the door before they closed them behind us. So it's a great little town, one of those destinations that I really like going to, one of the off the beaten path destinations, especially if we're going and spending the night there. So you see here the map. The next destination is Arles, and Arles is a city in Provence, and it's a Roman city, actually, because Julius Caesar kind of crossed the Rubicon River there in 49 AD. That's the river in northern Italy, and he took over all this region of Provence. And so he began building cities, and the emperors that followed him for the next 500 years began building cities stretching from what we know as Arles all the way up through Paris, London, Bath, all the way up to Hadrian's Wall, which is almost the division between Scotland now and England. So this began their takeover of the entire continent of Europe and also part of North Africa. So if you go to Arles today, it's laid out as a Roman town. So all Roman towns had 2 main roads, one going north to south, one going east to west. And in all of those axes, there was a theater where where plays and dramas would be produced. There was amphitheaters like the Colosseum, there's one in Arles now. And there are also baths. And so if you were a Roman, citizen of Rome, and you arrived at any of these towns, you didn't have to have a map because you knew it was laid out exactly as Rome was. So at this time, when the emperors came into in the middle of the 1st century AD, there was about 400,000 people living here in this little town. Now there's about 40,000 people living here. So let's look at Arles.
Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon and conquered this area of Provence in 49 BC. And that began almost 500 years of Caesar's being the emperor of the Roman Empire. Now, you'll notice that there's something that looks very similar to the Colosseum you might see in Rome here. And this was built because Arles had to become a Roman city. And all Roman citizens knew how a city was laid out, with 2 main streets, one going north to south, the other going east to west. And in that were various baths and coliseums and theaters and places for entertainment and whatnot. So that was known for every Roman citizen. So no matter what city they arrived in, they always could know their way around town.
So my commentary ends there, but Charlotte, we've seen these are your photos here of animals and markets. So what goes on there? I've never been to the market in Arles.
So I think we were there on a Saturday morning, and the market goes all along the 2 main streets in Arles, and you can find everything there from spices, clothing. They even sell chickens, other kinds of animals. And my friend's gonna kill you for that picture. So
this is part of the markets here, right?
yes. So, and the markets,
Eggs.
it's a very large market. You can buy jewelry. There they have the chicken roasting on the spit.
Well, that's great for a picnic.
Yes. So, and in fact, I think that's what we did that day.
Mhm.
We got food to go and ate it where we were heading. But it's a great market.
Now, in this town too, if I recall, you had a local guide,
We did.
and what did you do with her?
So when we got into Arles, we met up with her after we had gotten settled into our hotel. And then she took us on a tour, showing us all of the major sites like the baths, the Colosseum. Also, we talked about Van Gogh because this is where he lived a lot of his life. And
a couple of years he was there, 1888 and 1889, and then nearby he spent his last few years and died there.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was a hospital. We went inside of that and kind of viewed it where he was. It's now, I think, a library on the top of it. And his paintings are all over town, like showing where he was sitting when he actually made that painting, and you can look at the scenery there of what he was actually doing his painting from. So very interesting.
So I'll stop right here just a minute because he painted an oil painting in Arles called Starry Night over the Rhone. And this photo of this painting is not Starry Night over the Rhone, it's just Starry Night. So who sings the song Starry, Starry Night? Whoever sings that? Anybody know? Don McLean. Well, it's about this painting right here. It's not about Starry Night over the Rhone, which is coming up next. And it's also a very, very famous painting, even more so than this one. You can see. So the Rhone River here, and there's a bridge in the background. And he was what is called a post-impressionist. So in the 1890s, and so this whole movement, Impressionism, came in. And these were artists, especially based in Paris, that would take a scene and look at it, and then just put paint on a canvas. And that was their impression of what it really looked at the moment through their eyes. Granted, they were probably doped up with anise and all of that kind of stuff because they were bohemians living up in the village of Montmartre. But and so they spent their days sleeping and their nights whining and dining, and a little bit of the time etched in some time to make some paintings. But Van Gogh, he was from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands, much of the time it's very dark and dismal there. By the way, his name is not really Van Gogh in the Netherlands; it's Van Gogh. Because that's really how they say it. Yeah. And but he was tired of all that ruckus stuff going on in Paris and wanted a little slower life, so he moved down south to Arles. And when he was down there in Arles, he lived there for 2 years, and he painted this Starry Night over the Rhone. And I think there's a couple of photos coming up next of actually the place where that he painted it. And you can really tell how it was just his impression, because there's the river and the bridge is back to the left. You'll see the bridge in just a second, I think. Yep. So that was right there where the Starry Night was painted. This is a student of mine, Cassidy, a few years back, standing in that exact spot. And this area right here, there was a place called the Yellow House where he lived with his brother Theo. And there's a painting of that as well. That might be the Yellow House, if I'm not mistaken. This is inside the arena, the Colosseum there.
Which is where they actually have bullfights there now. They don't actually kill the bulls, so it's a little bit it's I guess a game where what do you call them? The toreadors are actually, they have to pick flags, I think, off of the bulls. So it's still dangerous, but they don't actually kill the bulls there.
I showed you just a moment ago, there's some sunflowers that Charlotte had taken a photo of. And this is one of the famous paintings that Van Gogh did in Arles, called Sunflowers in a Vase. The sad thing is, a year later, he went into an insane asylum because he just was troubled his whole life. And then he committed suicide by taking a 9mm pop gun type pistol and shooting himself in the chest. Isn't that crazy? And the bullet lodged, and he was just fine walking around and everything else. But he got the infection from the bullet because he couldn't get it out, and he died in 1889. But he was not even famous until 3 years past his death. And then his work just blossomed throughout the world, and a very famous artist, Van Gogh. Now, the next place we're going is not even on this map, because we kind of added this into our tours, because if you've ever read any of the books by Peter Mayle, he's an English author, and he wrote a very famous book about 30 years ago called A Year in Provence, about him buying a house and fixing it up. And so there's a region up in right here north of Arles and north of Aix called the Luberon, which is a mountain range and the mountains range to get to about 4,000 feet or so. And the mountains drop off very quickly to a plateau or to the valley, or I guess we call it here and there, the Piedmont, going down to the sea. And so these volcanic rocks, it's called a massif, have produced this whole area that's very rich, and these little towns have popped up all over it. So we're going to look at a town called Bonnieux. Is that how you say it? Mm-hmm. Okay. And this has become a staple on this tour, even though we don't even advertise it. I'm just giving you a little secret about what we now do. So here's looking from the town of Bonnieux. So Charlotte, you and I can just talk a little bit about all these photos because there's some music coming on soon, but that's it.
It's a very small little town on the top of this mountain, and you have to go up this very steep street to get to the top, to where the little cathedral is at the very top of it. You can see everything pretty much this little town has to offer in an afternoon, but it has a lot of great places to eat, a lot of
couple of wine bars, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a really beautiful little place to go. And it's also well located. So I know that on one of the tours I did, we actually did a day trip from there to another town.
And that's Charlotte and I at one of the little wine bars up here. So the town kind of spirals up from, let's say, 1,000 feet above sea level to about 1,500. So if you're walking up, you're going to kind of spiral up. And we go to the top where this park is located. And there's an old windmill in that area as well. And you get these grand views over the entire valley. And it's really a place just to chill out. The hotel we stay in has a pool, although we've never been in it, because I remember the last time I was there, the wind was blowing about 40 miles an hour. And so we're seeking shelter. I think I put in my journal back here, I just read it earlier, it was about 10 degrees Celsius. So, that's pretty chilly. And these are some of the little bistros and whatnot. These are the fields of lavender that are growing. And Charlotte likes to take a lot of photos of doors and windows and animals, and so those are hers. That's okay. And flowers. I'm going to put the escargot in the oven here while we're going. So, Charlotte, tell them about the meal we have here. You've had a few more than I have.
My most memorable was to be honest, exactly what very good, really enjoyed it, and especially because of the ambiance there. Because like almost anywhere you go in this town, you're going to have a wonderful view of the valley.
So this is my journal here, and this is a place Charlotte and I ate, and two brothers owned it called La Bonnieux, and we had a great cheese course I wrote down, and we had a veal steak, beans, and green beans. I can't even hardly read my scribbling in my journal, but that's what we had that night. And I remember it's a great experience. And so you can't go wrong with the cuisine and the wine in this region called the Luberon. So the next place we're going to go to are two market towns. Here's an example of the food. So it's a little bit artsy. That looks good. Looks like steaks and mushroom and rosemary. Once again. This is from the hotel window, isn't it? Or not? Yeah. That's some kind of pastry or something. Sachet. Okay. There's some chocolate going into a cake. That's looks really good. I think that's about it for Bonnieux. And from there, we're going to talk about two market towns in the area. Oh, okay, so hang on a minute. We'll do the market towns in a minute. Now we're going to a Roman aqueduct called the Pont du Gard. So the pont is a bridge over the river Gard.
I'm going to have no friends left.
Well, you took the photos.
They weren't meant for publishing.
So this aqueduct is really amazing, 160 feet above this river. And the aqueduct runs about 30 miles from a spring up in the mountains to the town of Nimes. And over the course of the whole length of that aqueduct, it drops only, I think if I read correctly, only about 40 feet. But even today, it brings fresh water into the cisterns of Nimes, and that's where they get their fresh water. And this is a Roman aqueduct built in the 1st century AD. And so fantastic. The only other aqueduct that is preserved even better than this one is one in Spain in the town of Segovia, north of Madrid. But this is a prime example, and we go and spend a day here. It's really nice to walk down to the water. You can even walk up to the top of the aqueduct, go across to the other side, see where it goes into the mountain through a tunnel. Oh yeah, I want to show you this. This is crazy, because I forgot that back in 2007 or 8 or so, that's me, by the way, and I forgot I let my hair grow out. It's longer than it was when I was in high school in the 70s. But that I just had to show that, because my goodness, somebody paddling down in the river. 160 feet above. Okay, now the next place we're going are those markets I was telling you about, and they're they're between on the map between Arles and Aix, and there's two of them. The first one we're going to is the town of Apt, and then the other one is Charlotte. You're going to have to tell me because I've never been there.
Little Soy.
Okay, and so since you're a market specialist, talk a little bit about it, because that's one thing that makes Charlotte's tours a little bit different than mine, because I go to the markets, but I don't shop. So I just point everybody in the right direction. But Charlotte's a great shopper. And I think if this is Pam, that we know Pam, you probably have been on this tour, you can attest to that. I'm not sure what Pam that is on there. That is on the, yeah. Okay, so Charlotte, tell us about this.
So all of the markets, I think, are kind of similar in Provence in that it's where the local farmers come, and you're also going to have people that have their local crafts. And but you can pretty much find anything at these markets. So the towns are small, but the vendors bring things in. It's kind of like, I guess, maybe our flea markets. Although it's really nice stuff. It's not things from China. That's not what you're going to find. You'll find great fruit, great meat, great spices. I know a lot of times people are looking for different flavored salts, and that's one of the things you can find in these markets. There's some, I guess that's
Cod,
yeah. Right. And there's somebody brought their shark with them that day. But the flowers, I mean, anything you can imagine. But now the market in Apt is not quite as big as some of the other ones that I've been to, but it's a nice sized market. And we spent a good morning there.
Right. And this is, I think we looked it up, and it was on a Saturday morning. And it's Charlotte described it pretty well, like what we know here at home, like a flea market, but really it's places that that the locals, the people that live there, know the market's coming to town on Saturday morning or Sunday. And so that's where they do their shopping. And for the week, you can buy a full set of clothes. You can buy work boots. You can buy all kind of tools, fans, underwear, all that kind of stuff, shorts. Whatever you want to get, clothing, you can get all that stuff there, along with what we take photos of is fruits and vegetables and fish and raw meat and all that kind of stuff. But Charlotte, I know you bought, like, there's fabric there for sale and everything else. So, yeah.
And one thing I found that was a really good resource in finding these markets was this book called Markets of Provence. It's by Marjorie Williams. I'll show you, I'll see if you can see the book.
Here, I'll stop.
Which, of course, I have on my
Here, hang on a minute. I'll take it off. I'll stop this share.
Okay.
And put it on. Leslie, where'd I go? What happened? Okay.
Okay, so this is the book and it's got many different markets. Some of the markets come to town obviously on different days of the week, like on Monday, Tuesday. But like David was saying, everybody in the area knows what day the market is coming to their town, but we don't necessarily know that here. So this was a great resource for me when I read this for the last time, and we were able to find some of these stories at a great time. Are you ready to take it off of this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Of course, in France, you're going to get loud, and that's one of the things that you'll usually find a couple of vendors that are loud.
Chérie, sous mon étreinte, je veux te serrer plus fort pour mieux garder l'empreinte et la chaleur de ton
Of course,
corps.
while you're at the market, the town is still, really warm. You little cafe or whatever in the middle of your shopping. It's a wonderful experience. Kind of learn the culture, the local culture. Local, most of the vendors are happy to talk with you. Of course, there is a little bit of a language problem, but most people do speak English. And now we've moved on to my little little store. It's hard to say.
Okay.
This,
And let me stop that for a minute before she begins talking about that. Wow, that tomato looks really good, doesn't it? So here we are back full screen. Leslie, thank you for helping us every night, but you're doing even more. So I got my escargot going here, and you can see it's cooked. I wish you could smell it, because the garlic, the parsley, and the butter just is wonderful. So let me see if I can demonstrate how to do this, because you get these little tongs. And I found it best if you put your hands in here and you spread the tongs out. And then what you do is you try to rake that little critter out of here. And I would have picked one that I should have prepared myself for this. Yeah, that's what happens usually. There's some movie that happens on, right? Julia Roberts does that. Here, let me try this one. I'm usually better than that, but these are nasty suckers. Okay. No, you're gonna have to bear with me. Darn it, Charlotte, I can't get it out of there. You want to try it? Yeah, why don't you try it? Here you go.
I'm going to try a different one.
Okay. I guess that means you get to eat the first one too, right?
Of course. I don't think, here it is. Oh my gosh, it's huge.
That's a huge one. You did great.
So I get to eat it?
Yeah, you can have it.
All right.
But you can have the best part too. It's hot.
But that's delicious.
But the best part is taking your bread, sopping some of that stuff up.
That is the best part. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try some of it too. And I'm gonna dig out a snail while Charlotte finishes up with the market. Golly, that's good. All right, here we go. Like I say, those tomatoes look great too. All right.
So this particular little town is it has a canal running through it, and so the market there is well known for its antiques. And everywhere, the whole town is just consumed by the market. And when we pulled in that morning, we had to park quite a ways away because there were so many people that were going to this market. And great antiques.
It's on Sunday, is that what it is?
I think it's also on Saturday. Saturday is their big market. The food there was amazing. We ate in a little cafe. This was kind of out, this picture of the Vespa was out near where we had to park. But of course they have beautiful vegetables. Here's some kids that were in those canals. So you could actually rent a boat and then use the, not really paddles, but what would you call those, sticks?
Punting.
Yeah, kind of like punting. Where you could make your way down the canal. We ate really well there, as I guess those are all my pictures. And we also spent quite a bit of time shopping there. And I think all of us came back with something real sort of great jewelry, all kinds of neat stuff, clothing. Like I said, antiques, a lot of antiques. So another great little town to visit. It was fun to get away for the day. This actually, I think we went there when we were staying in Bonau.
Because it's not very far. It's a little bit to the west, northwest.
It
of
was
Bonnieux.
about maybe an hour and a half drive there. And that day we also went to Arles, and we also went to a winery where we did a wine tasting and actually came home with some balsamic vinegar and olive oil from that winery. So the entire day was fantastic. Spent in these little towns that, like I say, most of them have these markets.
There's the olive oil.
Yeah.
Okay, so that ends Bonnieux. I guess that's Bonnieux
That
and the market,
was,
right?
yes. No, Bonnieux wasn't a market. It was where we ate dinner.
Okay. So then we go to the French Riviera, the town of Nice. This is a very short segment because it's a jumping off point to get to Italy, but it's a nice town for a beach. And they have some good seafood there. So we're looking from the mountaintop down into the harbor of Nice. And here's the beach of Nice. Many people go there. It's a rocky beach, but it's okay. They have this new sleek tram that runs up and down from the top of town to the bottom of town. And we spend the night here and have the food's pretty dang good in Nice, but the town is just a big town. So if you're not really going to the beach, it's kind of just a jumping off point because the next morning we catch a train to Italy. That's looking down the Grand Promenade of Nice. One last video.
Nice has a nice
David
market.
McGuffin here in Nice, south of France. Your adventure starts right here at the water fountain, the Water Folly.
So that kind of ends that segment of our Best of the Med tour going through France. Like I said, last week we talked about Barcelona, and that's where it all began. And we were 2 nights there, and then we go 1 night in Carcassonne, Carcassonne, and then we do a couple of nights in Arles, and we now have added this Bonnieux in there as well, and then a night in Nice, and then on to the Cinque Terre and the Italian Riviera for 3 nights to end the tour, which is our topic for next week. And so that's kind of where we are. You probably know that Charlotte and I snuck off and went to Hawaii last week. And one day soon, we'll tell you about our trip there because it was really great. First time for me going to Hawaii, and we were most of the time on the Big Island. And knowing that I would be maybe talking about that, I made some videos and stuff there. So I'll assemble that and get it to you in a few weeks. But we had a fantastic time. Now we're back home, jet lagged, and hallelujah, I'm going to Europe in 11 days. So I'm heading out to Italy on the 11th of June, and then over to Greece the following day or two after that. And we got a couple of tours going on there. So we're really looking forward. The world's opening up, and it's opening up to travel, and we just can't wait to be a part of it. So thank you guys for all watching tonight, and tune in next week as we visit the Cinque Terre and the Italian Riviera. Okay, thanks for watching tonight. We're going to eat our escargot and cook up our steak and French fries. We're going to have a great meal. Maybe I'll film it and let you see a little bit of it for next week. Okay, au revoir.